Hello and welcome to the first episode of This Week in Gaming. So, my goal here is to talk about what has happened over the last week in games, bring that information in one spot. I have ideas for improvements along the way that I'm interested in doing, but we're just going to focus on what happened this week or this past week, and there's a lot that's happened. We're just going to jump right into it, and I'm sure a lot of you are aware about what happened here, but Ubisoft Montreal was pretty much swatted, right? There was a scare that there was a hostage situation at Ubisoft Montreal campus, and after it was a scary couple of hours. I know I had people in my studio a little bit worried. I've been to that campus before. I can't tell if this is their main or their auxiliary building. So it looks like, thankfully, there was no actual situation, no actual hostage situation or anything like that. But it does make a little bit of a scare in that somebody had the balls to go and SWAT a AAA game studio. So they are going into an investigation to try and figure out who did it. I have no idea where that is at, and I'm sure that they're not releasing all that information to the public. But it is something that is scary and something that I hope sees severe repercussions, because that kind of stuff is scary, right? When you're working at a game studio, you kind of have to ignore all the social media side that's going on around your game that's negative. In fact, you should just ignore social media altogether, especially around a game's release. And to actually, start getting scared that there are people out there that think that you should be hurt in that they are swatting your location, it is very scary, right? There are security guards at probably all AAA studios. I'm not sure if the police were aware that they were going towards a studio. I don't know how much they knew. But it is definitely a little bit of a scary situation, and there should hopefully be severe repercussions, and people should be dissuaded from doing that sort of thing, especially from my point of view. People are scary on the internet. When you're making games, and if you make a decision or if there's something that a player doesn't disagree with, they could get really vocal and angry, and they have every right to go on the internet and say how disappointed they are or how angry they are. But then, they start crossing the line, and people start throwing death threats at developers because they think that they ruined the game somehow. There's plenty of examples of this, and it's a scary thing, but it's also, most of the time, something that you can just ignore. In this case, when the police show up knocking at your door with, guns, and you're evacuating to the roof of your building, as what happened at the Ubisoft Montreal campus, it is scary. It becomes real, and all of a sudden, you kind of get a little bit nervous at all the allegations online. Ubisoft did release a statement afterwards, which has been on your screen for a few seconds. We want to salute the courage and composure our team showed today. Our focus remains on ensuring their health and well-being. We would also like to thank the SPVM, the Police Force of Montreal, for their quick and professional response, helping to bring the situation under control. We are extremely relieved this was resolved without incident, and we'd like to thank you for all your support and kind words. So, thankfully, nothing bad came out of this. I know swattings can be very deadly. There has been somebody that was killed. I think that's mentioned in this article as well. The Wichita swatting suspect, who is absolutely getting annihilated by the legal system. Very rightly so, because I'm pretty sure this person ended up killing somebody because they swatted them. So, very scary situation. Very glad that nothing bad came out of it, and I super hope that whoever did this gets what's coming to them. So, we're going to move on from a super heavy note to a super light note. So, if you're unaware of what's going on Twitch right now, DMCA is having, a breakdown, a meltdown. Twitch is having a really hard time with music. So, essentially what has happened, with a quick recap, Devin Nash actually is a super good resource on this, and you should go to his channel. His YouTube is Devin Nash, his Twitch is Devin Nash, if you want to learn more about that. But essentially, the result of the DMCA clusterfuck that's been happening over the past couple of days or past couple of weeks is now you shouldn't be streaming music. You should not be streaming copyrighted music. People are getting in trouble and banned for streaming copyrighted music, or getting in trouble and banned for having streamed copyrighted music years and years ago. And the people who this hit the most are going to be the rhythm game streamers, the GTA streamers. And this is just a clip of this old Chainbrain guy. I haven't been introduced to him before, but I saw this tweet and I thought it was very relevant. So he says, I took the advice Twitch gave me and muted my Rocksmith game audio because he's playing music that's copyrighted. Sounds pretty good, I think. Let's just listen to
Alright,
this.
Twitch chat, this song's a fucking slammer. I want you to slam your heads on your keyboards. Let's get those hyper headbangs in the chat.
You see the problem that's happening here, right? So as the music industry, the RIAA, I love this performance this guy's putting out. The RIAA has tools to detect people playing copyrighted music live and can send them DMCAs live without having to do VODs or bot checks after the stream has ended. So you're not protected if you choose to disable clips or VODs. And as a result, it's like people like this who have made their community, who have made their living off of games that revolve around copyrighted music, are in a very, very scary situation. You know, of course, you could take the pure legal side and say, hey, these people were breaking the law. They were making money off of content that they did not own. And, you know, when you say that, it's kind of hard to disagree, but at the same time, Twitch has fostered an environment in which this was practically encouraged, because the RIAA and the music industry has only just started caring, so Twitch just also has only just started caring. And they really haven't given any good advice, any good, you know, ways to go about it. And essentially the only thing you could do as a streamer is, if you've played copyrighted stuff in the past, delete your VOD history. For some people, this is like 9+ years of their legacy, and stop playing copyrighted music. And that's what you have the power to do as a content creator. But there's even evidence that shows that even if you do delete clips, they're still on the Twitch servers, publicly available, and the RIAA and the music industry can go in there and still send you copyright strikes. So this whole situation is a clusterfuck. It is like every day, it's like what's happening with DMCA right now on Twitch, and it is going to be a rocky couple of months, and possibly year or two, as Twitch tries to figure this out. So, not a good look. But in good news, BioWare has just announced, and by just I mean last week, about 8 days ago, that they are not only doing a Mass Effect remastered, they are also working on a new Mass Effect game to add to the trilogy +1. I don't know what the word for that is, but I'm going to ignore it. So let's take a look at this. It's actually super exciting, especially for diehard fans of the Mass Effect series, maybe minus Andromeda. But it's tough keeping a big secret, and we really struggled to keep this one a surprise, which is very true. You know, having to keep secrets from the general public when you're so excited about it can be very difficult. But of course, this is all PR talk. We announced Mass Effect Legendary Edition. So this Legendary Edition, they talked a bit about it, and what they said specifically was their goal was not to remake or reimagine the original games, but to modernize the experience so that fans and new players can experience the original work in its best possible form. And this, to me, is the best way that they could have approached this. Not just because of Andromeda's failure on launch, but simply because the Mass Effect games are already known still today as really good games. I still have friends today that are going back and playing the original games because they love them so much and they've done them so right. And since the games are, you know, so narratively driven, a narrative isn't something that necessarily needs to be reinvented, right? A story is forever. That being said, there might be cliches or tropes that were innovative back then, which are no longer innovative now. But for the most part, you know, I think that this is the best possible way that they do it. And in the last paragraph, the second to last paragraph, meanwhile here at BioWare, a veteran team has been at work envisioning the next chapter of the Mass Effect universe. We are at the early stages on the project and can't say any more just yet. But we're looking forward to sharing our vision for where we'll be going next. So this is very interesting to me. There's a couple ways in which you can announce games, right? Once you announce a game, it is much more difficult to cancel it, right? The longer that you work on a game without announcing it, the more time you have to look at it to see, is this something that we can do? Is this something that will sell? And should we, you know, pump this game to full production, and should we follow through with it? And the answer to that is not always clear. But a lot of times, brand sells, right? Mass Effect will sell. The new Elder Scrolls game, which was announced similarly, I think it was last year, where they just showed, you know, a 10-second pan, a camera pan over a generated terrain. And it's like the Elder Scrolls, and people lost their shit because that brand holds so much value to them. So the Mass Effect game will sell, most likely. They're announcing it now, super early, no details at all, to just start getting the hype rolling. It's possible that when the remastered releases, there might be new details, unsure. I firmly believe that this new Mass Effect game will do much better than Andromeda, and they won't make the mistakes that Andromeda made. The reason I think that is a couple things. So firstly, the Andromeda development path was very difficult. Not only did a lot of high-level developers leave mid-development, which was just a sign of most likely either they saw that the game was going to fail, or there was, top brass executives kind of stomping on the will of the developers. It's really hard to know exactly why that happened, but it's never good. The top people leaving in the middle of a game development, never good. Another huge thing that I think was bad for Andromeda was that it was their first time using the Frostbite engine, I believe. Prior to that, they were using Unreal Engine 3, and now they had to make a new game in a completely new engine. They had to rebuild all of their tools from scratch, so there was a lot of extra development time and man hours needed to actually get them up and running, whereas every time you make a new game and you make a game using the same engine, you're kind of building up the puzzle pieces that you have at your disposal. You've solved a problem in Mass Effect 2 so that you don't have to deal with it in Mass Effect 3. Like, that kind of stuff makes the development process much faster. But once you switch engines like that, all of that work is gone. You have to rebuild it. You might be able to, solve problems before they happen because you'll need this at some point, so you build this utility function or something like that. Just the sheer amount of work that goes into a full engine transition for a AAA game is astounding. So now that they don't have to do that, they can build off of what they have for Mass Effect Andromeda, and they hopefully have the knowledge to prevent whatever caused all those people leaving, so that they could hopefully not screw up. And I have faith. I have faith that this new Mass Effect game will be a huge hit, will be a success. It's a little early to tell, of course, but I have high hopes, especially after coming off of Andromeda, right? It's easy to have low hopes or be pensive, but I'm excited for it. Speaking of top leadership leaving, so at DICE, we have Dennis Bronville. I don't know how to pronounce it, but he was the creative director of Battlefront at EA DICE, and he has left their studio. So, what does that mean? I think Battlefield 6 is scheduled for next year. I have no idea if that is some public information or if that was leaked, or I don't know. But if that's the case and this person's leaving, that probably just means that Battlefront is not coming back, at least not anytime soon. It's of course just rumors at this point, but this person was a huge fan of the Battlefront series. He was creative director of the Star Wars Battlefront series, at least the new version that EA has, and it didn't necessarily get the warmest reception from fans, especially after a couple of fiascos, stuff like turning off getting XP in certain modes because they wanted you to switch modes, or everyone knows how bad EA screwed up with Battlefront. But at the end of the day, the developers are most likely not the root of the issues. This was probably a huge fan of the series, and him leaving most likely means that there is not at least a very soon him leaving means that there is probably no incoming Star Wars Battlefront game in the next couple of years. Alright, and speaking of games coming in the next couple of years, we have something pretty interesting here. So Bluepoint Games is rumored to be getting acquired by Sony. There's nothing confirmed yet, but Bluepoint Games is the development studio that just released the Demon's Souls remaster, as well as the Shadow of the Colossus remaster or remake 2 years ago, bringing them to current gen standards. So they have a good track record. The new Demon's Souls getting really good scores. I think it has a 93 on Metacritic right now. And they are possibly being acquired by Sony with the potential goal to be making original IP. The person who claims this was not able to back up their claim with a direct source, so always take it with a grain of salt, but I think it makes a lot of sense, because at the end of the day, most developers want to make something that they are excited about. They want to make something that they are invested in. A job of leadership at studios is to get the developers working on it passionate and excited, because when you are passionate about a project, you are much more likely to put in the extra hours during a week in order to make sure that game gets to the next level. And it is very hard to do that when you're working on remakes or remasters, because you have very little creative agency over the game itself. So it's just hard to get invested. There is the possibility, if you were a diehard Demon's Souls fan, you loved Demon's Souls so much, and you got to work at the studio that was bringing it to this current generation, that might be super exciting for you, but that's probably a minority of people, a vast minority of people. So being able to hopefully make a new IP could be very good because the studio has proven themselves. They kind of have gotten the knowledge of Souls-like games, so it's quite possible that in the next couple of years you will see, or we will all see, a new Souls-like game that is AAA quality from a brand new studio, and that would be super exciting. If you are a fan of the Souls-like genre, you should definitely keep an eye out to see what Bluepoint is doing. And that wraps up my week in gaming, or this week in gaming, over the past couple of days. And there's a lot of exciting stuff. There's a lot of scary stuff going on with Ubisoft Montreal and that whole situation, but there's a lot of things to look forward to in the next couple of years in games. We have the new Mass Effect trilogy remaster. We have possibly a new Souls-like game coming. There's a bunch of stuff to look forward to, and the new console's just released, so it's a great time for gaming all around. So thank you so much for watching. If you are interested in more content like this, make sure to subscribe so that you are notified when I make more content like this. And be sure to follow my Twitch channel over at twitch.tv/godlikeonline so that you can see me go live each Sunday with a recap of This Week in Gaming.